Good morning, Facebook, and welcome aboard. This is Jim Blythe, Veterans Impact Show. Joining me, my co-host, my partner, the marriage counselor of the century, U.S. Navy veteran Cedric White, minister, absolutely fantastic speaker, and his program is great. We're going to be live in just a second with our broadcast. Welcome aboard. This is Veterans Impact Show. Welcome to the Veterans Impact Show, where our motto is Charlie Mike. Continue the mission. I'm your host, Jim Blythe, U.S. Navy Vietnam veteran and certified senior advisor. Join me as we feature veterans who continue the mission of leadership and commitment in our communities after serving our great nation. Why, you never know who you're going to meet or where we're going to go. So welcome aboard. Great day, and thank you for being on board. Hey, Cedric White, you are a great marriage counselor, minister, co-host, and great friend. And your wife, Michelle, you have Healing Thine Heart Ministries.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for being a part of this and being on board. Today, we've got an exceptional program. We're going to be talking about first responders, of which about 30+% are veterans in every first responder organization. I'd like to introduce to you guys Michael Bergin, and I can't say it with a New York accent, police officer in Garland, and Todd Gyure. And if you look at on the screen, it's going to look like Gruyere cheese, but it's pronounced Jerry. Okay, guys, I got to tell you, I want to introduce Todd first about your background. You're a hostage negotiator, SWAT team member. You're head of the wellness program for the Garland Police Department. That is an amazing thing that you do. And this program that you guys have of a first responder support program, Todd, tell us a little bit about that, and then we'll segue over to Mike and what he does.
All right, hey, Jim, thanks very much for having us. It's an awesome opportunity. It was great getting to meet you, and I knew right away you're somebody that I want to be working with and I want to network with. So thanks very much for having us and the Overwatch peer support team. So I've been a Garland police officer about 22 years. I spent about 16 and a half of that time in patrol. So I got a lot of exposure to occupational trauma at work. I got a lot of exposure to unusual work schedules, unusual work hours, working all the holidays. And then I'm a regular human being, so I have all the normal stressors. So it got me really interested in, how can we train at a higher level for our wellness and for our family's wellness. And it really got accelerated when I got the opportunity to put in to be a hostage negotiator at Garland PD and join the SWAT team as a negotiator. And when I got selected, I started getting a lot of training in how to empathetically listen, how to connect with someone that's in a crisis, maybe even a suicidal or homicidal crisis, how to connect with that person, how to communicate with them. And you're going to try and effect a behavioral change when you can't use any force and you can't use any threats. So you literally have to, how can you connect with this person on a human level, even if they're in a big, big crisis, even if they committed some horrible offense? How can you communicate with them with your words and affect that behavioral change and get them to agree to do the nonviolent resolution? So when I started getting those skills and learning how to communicate at that level, I started seeing that that could translate in how to communicate with first responders and how to try and get them to accept this kind of high level skills training that we've really overlooked for like the first 100 years. We know how to train to mitigate risk in law enforcement for all these other risks. If it's a building search or a traffic stop or going to a domestic disturbance, but we kind of missed out on focusing on any risks to our brain health. So really, when I was doing the hostage negotiation, learning all these high-level listening and communication skills, and I started thinking about, man, this job has damaged me. It's really changed my worldview. At times, it's affected my sleep. It's affected my relationships. I didn't have any training how to mitigate that. So I started kind of using the hostage negotiator training into meeting people on the wellness side. And it started and went from there. That's kind of it in a nutshell.
Wow, that's a big nutshell. Mike, tell us about, you're from New York. Tell us about what you do and how you are integrated in this.
Well, sir, I'm an 8-year Marine veteran.
Yay!
And, I've been with the police department 29 and a half years. Fixed to retire in January. I spent 26 years in patrol. I spent 27 years as a certified bomb technician. And I've done everything in the police department you could imagine, with the exception of delivering a baby. Years ago, I was in trauma, an officer-involved shooting, and I suffered from PTSD, and I'm still in recovery. And during that time, I got involved with the peer support and the ops program to get out to the other veterans and the other first responders that it's okay to go ask for help and not suffer for the 6 years that I suffered before I asked for help.
Right.
Is the training that you guys have done, Todd, is that parallel the military peer network? Because I've been through some of that training, but it wasn't as intensive as I think what you have been through. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, there is definitely some parallels there, especially with Overwatch peer support. So when we were building that program, so we could have a regional peer support program for law enforcement. So some of us, not unlike me, we're not really too excited about talking to a coworker about what's going on with my personal life or going on with different stressors I have. My coworker could take a standardized test, become my supervisor. So maybe I'm not going to use the internal program. And so one of the parallels is when I came up with this idea with some of my colleagues for Overwatch peer support, we pitched it to NAMI North Texas. Instead of starting our own nonprofit, getting bogged down in fundraising and all that stuff, we wanted to find someone already doing peer support and family-to-family, non-clinical things. NAMI North Texas was our partner. When we were building the curriculum, we decided we needed some help to make it as high level as we wanted it to be. And Sean Hanna with Meadows Mental Health Policy Institute, he's built a bunch of peer-to-peer stuff for the military through Meadows, and him and his team with Tempa Sherrill, they won the contract. So our Overwatch peer support is adapted from the military peer-to-peer program. It's been super successful that Sean Hanna and his team helped build. That program was adapted for Overwatch peer support. And we were having those discussions, Jim. It was pretty natural to want to use that proven system and just adapt it rather than start over. 30% of our staff are military. There's some crossover between the types of trauma that occur in the military, especially if you're in a combat position, and then in law enforcement when you're working the street. So with knowing all of that, we knew that we'd get a better and a higher quality product by using something that was proven in the military, super effective, and then just adapting it for our population in law enforcement.
Cedric, you had a question that you were talking to me about. Ask Mike what that.
Mike, you in the military, what was your role? What was your role in the military?
I started out as infantry, machine gunner.
Okay.
And I was a Marine security guard, and then I volunteered for the Riverine Assault Craft Platoon during the Gulf War.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was a gunner's mate in the Navy. So the fact that I was born in Texas is a good thing. The fact that I live in Texas is a good thing, because my life has always been around guns, but gun safety, right? And so with a lot of people, even when we talk about experiences with PTSD, I've had a guy who loved guns, but there was an experience that he had. It was trauma. And all of a sudden, as a matter of fact, it wasn't that he just no longer wanted to be about guns. He became sort of anti-gun and anti-Second Amendment and so forth. But that was a level he later came to realize that was a level of PTSD. So what you'll see sometimes is those things that people love, when they experience that trauma, they make a change and they go 180 degrees away.
Now, Mike, you went through this program. I'm just assuming because you're part of our discussion today.
No, not at first. Okay. At first, I suffered in silence for 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
The depression, anxiety, lack of sleep, etc. All the symptoms, alcoholism, dangerous behaviors. And I was just one phone call from probably losing my job. So like Todd was saying, the Overwatch program, I didn't reach out to anybody within the department. I went outside the department to a friend who had already retired. And I asked him, can you get me some help? I need you to help me help myself. And he went and did that. Now he ratted me out to the police chief, but that was okay. At the time, our police chief was really trying to push the PTSD, the mental health, the wellness program. And I just happened to be the first one to come forward and say, hey, chief, I'm suffering. I need some help. And he went and he told me, I'll get you that help. And he did. And that's what got me involved with the peer support, Todd, Overwatch, because I don't want any other officers, any other veterans suffering for 6 years, where I did.
Right.
And
even though I'm still struggling, I'm getting there. There.
That's the thing. Life is a journey, right, Cedric?
That's it.
And how we make that journey happen and what we do, you can do 200 miles an hour on the highway and have a policeman get behind you, or you can do 70 miles an hour and be working together. I think one of the big things is that I am seeing is working together with the military, because quite frankly, guys, and Michael, you are former military, you are a Marine. You're not ever not a Marine, but it is working together to make a better community. Because if you have a better military, if you have a better police officer, so what we're really talking about is the peer network type of training and how that impacts people, correct?
Right.
And I bet you see some of it in your marriage counseling, because it looks like a war zone in some marriages.
Well, here's the irony. Of course, we deal with veterans, we deal with first responders. And one of the things that when I get a chance to address the public for vets, for police officers, is the one thing that Todd said earlier, and that is that I'm human. I'm trained to do a lot of things, and I can be an expert in it, but yet and still I have the same problems that you, Joe Public, have. And there has to be a level of understanding there. But when we, in our practice, in couples come in, a lot of times when people say PTSD, they think it's only military, only first responders. But there's a lot of people who just, in what we would consider everyday life, are carrying, like Mike said, years of PTSD. A young girl or even a young boy, unfortunately, on both sides, they're raped at a young age, and then they get no help from it. They're carrying that for years. And Mike said it. You have to find someone that you can trust. Normally that's stage one. That's the first step. Somebody that I can trust to share this with, and somebody that hopefully later won't rat you out to people that you don't want them to know, but somebody that you can trust, they're going to hear you. They're going to respect what you say, and not just dismiss what you're going through, whether it's in their perception, large or small.
Now, Todd, you were talking about how the training to become a hostage negotiator before the program started. You were talking a little bit about that and how it helps you to communicate and relate to people. Tell us a little bit about that, please.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. So the skill set's really interesting, because you learn real quick to unlearn what society, your family, your peer network teaches you to say. So like when you're watching a movie or a TV show, or you're looking at something on social media, someone's upset, you hear people say, calm down. So in hostage negotiation, you learn real quick that calm down actually agitates the person. It doesn't help. Like, if I'm upset and someone tells me calm down, like if that worked, then I'd never be upset. So in hostage negotiation, and your brain will really flag that now. Like when you hear someone like me saying, you're going to see all the time they say calm down when someone's upset. Your brain will flag that. You're going to see it in TV shows now all the time where people are upset, someone's saying calm down. They also, you get taught by society to minimize people's pain. So someone's upset and you find out because they're 15 years old and their girlfriend or boyfriend dumped them, we minimize their pain. And like, oh, that's not a real problem. You know, call back when you've got a real problem or talk to us about a real problem. So in hostage negotiation, you learn to unlearn all of that. And you learn to realize that people's pain and suffering, or when they're upset or sad, that's real individual. And for all you know, that's the worst thing that's ever happened to them. So when you're acquiring that skill set in hostage negotiation and you're learning it for someone that's in a crisis that intersects with police at a SWAT team level, most of the time there's a crime involved there, but you learn to set that aside, not pass any judgment, and connect with this person on a human level. So when you start trying to train to do peer support, that skill set transfers really good. Like at Overwatch peer support, we're excited to get hostage negotiators that are interested in peer support because we know they should have a high level of empathetic listening already, and that they'll be able to apply those skills to peer support, and they'll be a really, really good listener. Because that's the other thing that we have to unlearn as a hostage negotiator or a really good peer supporter is you don't want to be trying to solve the person's problem. They're really not. Most of the time, a peer, they're not coming to you for a solution. They're coming to you to be heard. Like they want to just be able to vent. They want to be able to talk about these challenges that are going on in their personal life or their professional life or something they were exposed to in the line of duty. And they just want a bit of vent and be heard. And really, as a hostage negotiator or as a peer supporter, I hate to say easy, but it can be easy if you really accept and get good training. Because since I'm not challenged with solving Jim's problem when he contacted me for peer support, I don't have that pressure. I'm not the medical doctor, or I'm not the psychologist, or I'm not the therapist trying to make a solution or a big improvement. I'm just going to be listening, validating Jim's concerns, helping to give him the opportunity to think about, man, Jim, that's how anybody in your situation would feel. That doesn't mean you're weak or broken or deficient. That's how anyone would feel if they were going through that. It really becomes something to me that when you're not trying to solve the problem, you just want to let the person be heard. It can become not nearly as challenging as some people think, because that's one of the things we run into at Overwatch peer support. We've got a lot of police officers, dispatchers, forensic investigators that are on our team. And I think at times they're really nervous about when I'm called on to come lead this peer-to-peer meeting at a local coffee house, am I going to say the right thing? They put a lot of
there you go.
All right. I got to interrupt you. We're going to have to go for a break to hear from our supporting partners. This is Veterans Impact Show, and I've got Todd Gyure and Mike, and we're talking about wellness. We're talking about police officers, first responders, veterans, and the programs out there to make you well. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Veterans Impact Show, and thanks to our sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage and Lone Star Wealth Strategies. Now, let's continue this great conversation. This is a great program because it relates to all of us. I think we think of the military and PTSD. Mm-hmm. We think of first responders and PTSD. But you mentioned a family that's in really bad shape, that's a child that's abused or someone who's bullied. PTS and these things permeate our society. We've now got the highest record levels of suicide we've ever had. Yes. We've got the highest levels of divorce we've ever had. And that's because people don't have the tools maybe to be able to deal with life. And I'm listening to Todd and I'm going, wow. And I'm listening to Mike and what he's talking about, what he went through. You don't have to suffer. Right. There are programs and things to help you. And that makes for a safer community. That makes for a smarter community working together. I think it's really, really important that we focus again and continue to tell this story. What's it like when you go into a hostage negotiation session? Are you doing it on the phone like we see in the movies? Do you get in front of the person? How does that play out?
So it can be either one of those. So like I can use a recent example. Our patrol unit was out at Lake Ray Hubbard. A suicidal young male had driven his car into the lake. And then his desire to survive took over, and he got out of the car as the car sunk. And then he was in water up to about his chin. And patrol officers were out there, and some game wardens and stuff, and they spent about 45 minutes talking to him, and his responses were just shoot me. So then I was called by one of the patrol officers to come out and assist. It wasn't an official SWAT call or official negotiator team call. They just asked me to come out and assist. So that was a face-to-face, and I spent about 45 minutes talking to that young man. And then he made the choice to come out of the water. He made the choice, which we were very grateful for, to live. But that was a face-to-face one. So it just can really depend on the circumstances. A lot of them are over a phone because the person might be barricaded, and if they have some hostages. But it can really depend. Sometimes face-to-face, sometimes on the phone, sometimes on a loud hailer on the Bearcat or something. But it can really be, it depends on the situation.
Now, do most situations you find in this thing are where they are barricaded in and it's family members that they're holding hostage? That's got to be a difficult situation to look at or to negotiate, to work through.
Yeah, a lot of them are with family members, something that overwhelmed somebody's normal coping mechanisms. There might have been some kind of intoxicant involved that then messes up their normal decision making. So a lot of times it is family members, and those can definitely be a lot more challenging when it's not just the person barricaded by themselves. There's actually other people in danger, but it also really super motivates you because that's what you sign up for. Hostage negotiators, it sounds like arrogance, but like when I got called out to talk to that young man face to face, and all I could see was his head in the water, and he'd driven his car in, and he was pretty motivated for a time to end his life. When I showed up, because of the training at the Garland Police Department, like I knew that I had this, and I knew even if the outcome wasn't what I wanted, I knew that I did the best you could do because I know I'm prepared. I know I've got this. And it's something that we are proud about at Overwatch Peer Support is when we train first responders and forensics and dispatch, we know that we're giving them the tools that when they get called, they've got this because they've got the skills. They rely on the training. And that's what I do in hostage negotiations. Garland Police Department's provided me the opportunity for hundreds and hundreds of hours of training like that. So when I show up, I know I'm bringing the A game. I know that I can do as good as anybody else can.
Well, that's the thing about the military. Train, practice. Right. It becomes muscle memory. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing. I'm a pilot. The more you train, the better off you are. And when you get into a tough situation, you get calmer because your training kicks in. When we have police officers as well as military that are calmer and they're being put into a tough situation, they continue to fly the plane. Because if you quit flying the plane, everybody crashes, right? So this training, let me ask you a question, and I'm really seeing some great things here with this. How do you go about, or how can people, if I'm a civilian and I want to sign up and go through this type of training, I can do it through the Military Peer Network as a veteran. How about your Overwatch? Do you supply this, or is there places that people can go to get this kind of training? Because it sounds fabulous.
Yeah. So right now, what we're training, what we can use, because obviously NAMI North Texas is a nonprofit, so we've got to hustle like other nonprofits to raise money. And we got to look for partners like Axon and their Axon Aid program to help fundraise with them. Right now, what we're training is police officers, and then we're training civilians that are either in communications, so they work in dispatch, or they're civilians that work in forensics, or any other civilian that works at the police department that's exposed to any kind of occupational trauma. So we have people that work in the records division, and they have to look at body cam of these incidents. They have to read reports of these incidents. So we'll train them too. So right now, the people we're training, and the program's actually expanded to all fire, EMS, and then frontline healthcare. So if you have one of those jobs, you work at one of those places, you can train with Overwatch peer support. So that's mainly our population that we're targeting right now.
I just asked Nathaniel to pull up NAMI.com. Is that correct? Have we got, you see it up there?
It looks like that's might be the NAMI national site. NAMI North Texas would be the one that has the Overwatch peer support category. I think that looks like
let's get that up, and let's talk about making a donation, because people are always asking me, what can I give my money to that really impacts the community? What can I give my money to that saves lives? And this is one of them. Mike, you're a perfect example of this. Saved your life, didn't it? You bet. All right, tell you what, let's do. Let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk more about this training and how it not only relates to us, but how it relates to those outside the military first responder community. This is Jim Blythe and Cedric White. We're your team, the A-Team for Veterans Impact Show. Subscribe, join us, be a part of this. Send us a message. We'll be right back to be here for you with Veterans Impact. Welcome back to the Veterans Impact Show, and thanks to our sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage and Lone Star Wealth Strategies. Now, let's continue this great conversation. All right, Nathaniel's working on bringing up your NAMI website for North Texas. There it is. Man, that is beautiful. Whoever did that did a great job. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I agree.
And I like the idea.
You just go to the Overwatch peer support link. It should be like at the top on one of those, that bar there. It should say Overwatch peer support. That'll take you to that category of the website.
Okay.
Yep. There it is. There it is. That's
Yay.
it.
Okay. Now, what we want people to know is, hey, you want to make a difference in the community? You want to make a difference? Don't shout, don't yell, don't complain. Go to something like this and support them financially. I'm sure that, $10, $100 would do a lot to help these people out.
Well, every little bit helps.
Every little bit
Put your money
helps.
where your mouth is, right?
Yeah. And Todd, a couple of years ago, I had Mike Catone on, a former Green Beret who was a police officer in Springfield, Massachusetts. And I'm going to connect you guys because he started community policing, C3 policing, and he's using a lot of the things and the techniques you're talking about to communicate, to train the officers to communicate with the public in the community, not really thinking about being part of a hostage situation.
Wow, cool. Yeah, that sounds really interesting. Definitely like to meet him. On this Overwatch peer support page, if you just scroll down, you'll see the donate button. And Jim, I really agree with what you were talking about. It's one of the things I was really impressed with NAMI North Texas is they want to have a bigger impact in the community than just say a social media post or just one time showing up to a protest or something. They actually want to be involved in something that is way more impactful, like creating a program like this, and then being part of the conversation and, if you will, the solution to help first responders do this real demanding work while still being a regular human being with all the regular human being challenges, and then be able to show up to work healthier and happier and perform at a much higher level. So that was one of the things I was really impressed with about NAMI North Texas, because in this day and age of social media, somehow a lot of people think that when they make a post, they just did something good. Like they did something impactful. And that's just not the case. That makes yourself feel better. It's pretty self-serving, but it doesn't actually do anything to change something in the community. So that was one of the things I was really interested about NAMI North Texas being a partner of ours, is they were interested in the hard work that took years and years to build a program like Overwatch peer support.
Cedric works with the Cohen Foundation and Marriage Matters
Management.
I bet, and I'm just speaking out of turn right now, guys, with the four of us here, we could organize a breakfast brunch meeting deal at a restaurant, or the company that I introduced you to, I got introduced to you at Symbios. They got a big conference room. We could put something together and have guys come in and be able to relate and do this, and we could start a community involvement type deal. I think that's part of what we need to do for first responders and military, is do more, not just go to a meeting and talk about this is what we did in the war, Daddy. This is what we're doing now.
Right.
Yeah.
The other thing we talked about, you are a big brother. That's something that I have not really been able to take the time to do, but in talking with the various recruiting commands, one of the biggest things is people don't relate to military because there's so few veterans now. Same thing with police officers. Most people don't relate to you as a human being, guys. I mean, am I wrong?
No, you're right.
Okay.
You're right. That was one of the things, Jim, that's a really good point about not relating to us as human beings. And that was one of the things that Mike's real humble, and he doesn't brag on himself, but that was one of the things that when we were just starting to train people and launching Overwatch Peer Support, I went to Mike because I knew he's a big force multiplier. He's a really, really good leader, and I wanted him as part of the team. And I knew that he would really help us do better things. And that was the same thing that I wanted Mike involved when I got this out of nowhere opportunity to be an associate producer on the film PTSD 911. It's out right now. It's available on Amazon, as well as screenings across the country. And I came to Mike and I was like, Mike, your story can save lives. Your story is real personable. You look like a guy that eats nails for a living, and you're on the bomb unit. Yeah. I mean, you look like this guy that you wouldn't expect to have any chink in the armor and have any vulnerability. And so I'm kind of bragging on Mike now, but man, I'm going to miss not having him when he retires teaching our academy, because I can't tell you how impactful it is to have a room full of police recruits. And Mike comes in and tells his story, and it just, you can hear a pin drop in the room. Like, these recruits are looking at this guy like it looks like he eats nails for a living, and all the bomb unit and all Marine and all these other things he did. And I mean, it's super impactful. And if you see the film, you'll be super impressed with the work he does. But I didn't mean to derail our conversation.
No. Well, tell us that film again and where we can get it. PTSD.
Yeah, you can find it real easy. Yeah, any kind of internet search, you can find it real easy. PTSD 911 or PTSD 911, the film. It's available for viewing on Amazon. Mike's profiled in the film. Super impactful thing he says in the film. You can use it for wellness training at any time. Just that tidbit of the film. But I was really, really pleased when he said yes, because
hey, Todd, I had an opportunity to watch both of the trailers on YouTube. Outstanding. I was like, and what got me is I just did this training yesterday. I was like, I would have loved to have had this to put in there. So I will be sharing it with a lot of people. Oh,
awesome. Thank you. Yeah, it's a super powerful, effective training tool with the first responder population. And in the trailer, you don't see Mike's part, but our chief of police is in there too. A couple other North Texas officers, some of the wellness programming in North Texas is in there. But Mike's part is we in law enforcement, we want to do things that are force multipliers. And Mike's dedication to Overwatch Peer Support, to PTSD 911, yeah, that's it. Big force multiplier, big agent of change.
I think we ought to be recruiting officers, military, and first responders to be mentors and big brothers and have some of this training, because I worked for about 20 years in a halfway house with teenage boys coming out of the Texas juvenile prison system. Most of the kids I worked with came from the school that was the maximum security facility. Most of my kids were violent offenders.
Wow.
And I wish I had had more training like that to be able to talk. Now, I developed a program to teach them, and my wife helped me, planning and goal setting. But if I had had more training like you're talking about, I think I could have been much more effective. And it's interesting is when you relate to troubled youth
Mm-hmm.
and you develop a relationship with them, they don't see you as an authority figure. They don't see you as a white man or a black man or a brown man. They just see you as a teacher,
Someone that they can trust.
Yeah, and that's a big thing, is building trust. One of the things I mentioned, Mike Catone and his C3 policing. He had a nurse come up to him and say, you know, and they were in the highest crime area of Springfield, Massachusetts. Our kids are terrified of going to school, and most of them don't have transportation other than walking. So why don't we do a walking school bus? Well, all of a sudden, the police are walking with these large groups of children to accompany them to school. And guess what? They're talking to them. They're getting to know them. That's the same thing of what you're talking about. This kind of training helps to build relationships.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
So, Mike, when you quit, where are you going to start training? You need to be training somebody. You need to be out on the front line.
Well, Todd, thank you again for your kind words. And I told the chief and I told Todd that when I retire, I still want to be involved with the police department and still speak at the academy as long as they'll have me. And then if I can go out on the public sector and do the same thing, that'd be great.
Well, let's work towards getting that to happen, because I think there needs to be so much more. And especially like in the marriage counseling and working with Cohen Clinic,
Mm-hmm.
This kind of training is needed big time.
Oh, it goes without saying this, you know, the PTSD, the fact that, number one, that there's another resource out there. To me, that's what I love about being a part of this show, finding out and being able to share. Wow, there's Overwatch peer support group, which a lot of people just don't know about, right? More people are learning about it. And so to be able to get it out there, get that information to work with and see, as Mike was talking about, over a period of time, that person progress, it's a wonderful thing. But as Todd is saying, we're going to walk alongside of you. We're not going to be judgmental toward you. We just want you to get not just back to where you were, but beyond where you were. That's
I like that. PTG. Yeah.
Post-traumatic growth.
And, you know, I think that ought to be something that we start working together. And I got to tell you something crazy. It's a really small world. I'm sitting in a movie the other night watching this movie, and it was called The Firing Squad. It's a Christian movie about what happened in Indonesia with some people who came to Christ. The guy sitting next to me is the chaplain for The Chosen, the TV. The series that's going on. And then I meet another man a few weeks ago with Symbios, and he's the legal. These guys are into media bigger than I've ever imagined. And what we can do with resources like that, like this film you're talking about, other things that can get out there. And I think we need to focus on these things. And I think we need to let the community know these are available. And we need your support, not only financially, but hand in hand to help people. Because if anything's going on in this nation right now, if anything really bothers me, we're not working together. Forces are causing us to fight each other and not work together. Forces are causing friction in the community with our first responders. They're coming the same thing. They're saying bad things about the military. It's not true. We got to be working together. We've got to bring this nation back together, without a doubt. And we got to have men like Mike that are out there training. And Mike, you don't really eat nails, do you?
Oh, I'm actually a very picky eater.
I got to tell you, Jim, though, like there's one thing having like a psychologist we partner with or a therapist come in, speak to the recruits. Okay, that's one thing. That's like a content expert. But then when you have Mike come in, it's very like disarming to these police recruits, because they see this guy that they can see is a very capable person. They hear his resume from being a Marine to all the other things that he's done. A lot of it sounds very Spartan warrior, very tough guy. And then they hear his story and they hear what he's willing to share that most people bury deep down. And when they bury it deep down, then they suffer. Right. It's super impactful. Like it's so different being delivered from someone that's working there, that's an operator. They're not just an academic. Like I can keep bragging on him because we need a lot more people like Mike that are doing this kind of training. And because that's all this is. It's high level skills training. It's not for broken people. It's not for deficient people. It's not just counseling. It's high level skills training like the military does, like law enforcement does, like first responders do for the rest of their job. So we need people like Mike to help break that stigma that it's just high level skills training, because that's where we make big strides forward when it's operators doing this kind of training. But we at Overwatch Peer Support, we really think the same thing as you were talking about, Jim. We got to be working together. So like the Cohen Clinic, they're an awesome partner of Overwatch Peer Support. We held one of our meetings at their Addison location recently. We work closely with them. We refer our first responders that are prior military, post 9/11, to the Cohen Clinic and their family. So like that collaboration, that thing you're talking about, we got to be working together, including with the community. That's something we find really, really important, that we can't do this alone. We can't hang out in our own silo. We got to have people like Mike. We have people like you guys, the Cohen Clinic, and many of our other really good partners here in North Texas, like NAMI North Texas, to perform at the highest level. We got to all be working together.
One of the things, you and I met at Symbios. Symbios does treatment that is just amazing using microcurrents. I'm getting Cedric over there. Right. And what they do is a total body deal to help people get blood flow, get their head screwed back on straight. Yeah. Once you get, though, a medical physical where you're recovering, you really need this kind of training that you're talking about with Overwatch and counseling. That was also something Symbios is doing. And I think it's critically important that we marry all of this together. You can't just make somebody well physically. You got to make them well physically, then you got to make them well mentally, and then you got to make them well spiritually. You find the same thing in your marriage counseling.
Every aspect of it.
Every aspect. Yeah.
So no, we call it going below the surface, right? Yeah. Most people want to stay be above the surface, you know, the iceberg, what you can see above the surface, but what's below the surface is really what quite often needs to be dealt with. We see the physical, but what's going on mentally, what's going on spiritually. And if we can start from that perspective, come from the spirit to the emotional, the behavior that's exhibited will exemplify whatever I believe, whatever I'm thinking.
Absolutely. We've got to carry this out and get it out there. So again, we've got on the website, NAMI North Texas, the Overwatch Peer Support Program, and it was basically put together with the military peer support program. We want to support this. And so if you've got a restaurant and you serve veterans and you want to have a meeting that will work with you, let's do it and bring trainers like Mike and Todd in, and let's give a broader training. Let's give training to those not only in our veteran community and in our police and fire community, but in the community as a whole. We got to start working together and get along. Yeah. I like what you said about pulling that guy out of the water. You could help him not focus on the problem, but you were focusing on helping him just get out of the water right then and there. Hey, guys, we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back to wrap this up. This is Veterans Impact Show. We're here for you. Support us, share us, and say thank you for being aboard. Welcome back to the Veterans Impact Show. And thanks to our sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage and Lone Star Wealth Strategies. Now, let's continue this great conversation. Man, I'm having a ball. I need to stop for just a second, though. I work for Fairway Independent Mortgage. I am a mortgage banker who specializes in working with the elderly. I was in Oklahoma yesterday. I wish I'd have had some of this training to help that lady, because there were some real serious problems that she's having that are creating problems on top of problems and on top of problems. So I'm going to see if I can't get some of this training. But in Fairway, we don't just supply a mortgage. We help you get where you're going to get, whether it's a reverse mortgage or a forward mortgage. And my NMLS number is 311548, and our corporate one is 2289. And we are an equal opportunity lender. We're here to help you. And also, I want to say a plug for Symbios Integrative Health. They have been super to me. They have helped me get back on track physically. They've helped. As a matter of fact, Todd, you brought a lady to that Navy League meeting, a police officer. I overheard she had an amazing story about how Symbios had helped her. Can you relate that just real quick? Because what that did was that helped her so much.
Yeah, she basically was giving results from that program, the Vector program, giving testimony that you hear a lot of times about it, that it definitely helped with elimination and big reduction of different types of pain ailments that she's had for years and years. And Symbiosis is an example of the hard work we do at the Garland Police Department and our wellness unit, and with our CISM and peer support of trying to find the best of the best programs and partners out there. Because when I learned about Symbiosis, and then I'm not just going to read about it on the internet, we scheduled an appointment, went out there. That's where I met you, Jim. Right away, I could tell, like, this is impressive. This is something we want to better refer our staff and their family members to. Through Overwatch Spirit Sport, we're going to be referring first responders and our military first responders to it. It's a really, really, really impressive program, really impressive option.
And it helps pain management, helps people get off all the narcotics and the drugs. But again, I want to say, as great as Symbios is, they also go a step further with counseling. And I know they could be working with your Overwatch counseling as well. It's not just about one aspect of life. It's about all of it.
Exactly.
Correct?
Right.
Yeah.
The full spectrum of who you are, your environment, all of that comes into play.
Well, as this program, we want to continue to focus on wellness and what we're doing. So we're going back for, if somebody came in late, go back and take a look at all of this. What we're talking about is a first responder wellness program, which is wellness of mind and body and spirit, and getting out there in the community to be a real integrative part of the community that makes a difference, a positive difference. You know, we had more of this going on instead of protests and people throwing rocks and bottles. Think what we could do. Yeah. Think what we could do, guys.
Yeah. Hey,
Mike.
Hey, Jim, one thing I wanted to bring up that we haven't brought up yet is, you know, as being a recovering person with PTSD, that Todd and I talk all the time about. There's so many programs out there, Symbiosis, 220, et cetera, that the guys got to know, if the one thing doesn't work for you, go to the next.
Yes.
Go to the next. Go to the next. Because one of those programs might be the one that connects with you and works for you. Not one program works for everybody.
Right. Everybody's body is different. This is what I've learned. So there are class 4 medical lasers. I work with Phoenix Theralaze. That can be a huge pain management. Symbios, they work with microcurrent. That is a huge, huge pain management deal. They've also helped me in terms of cancer and kidney function and heart function. You want to know more, just contact me. But I got to tell you, your training in Overwatch, I really want to see what I can do to become very involved in that and what we can do to help people, because it's needed. And again, I am a huge proponent of us going into the community as veterans, as first responders, and working with the kids.
Yeah.
My God, our kids are at such high risk right now, Cedric.
One of the things that, as the chaplain for the Prosper Police Department, one of the things that we try to do and that we brought, excuse me, into effect was the Adopt a Cop program.
Yeah.
We did that so that families could adopt police officers. Police officers could get to know families, the children, and there's more connectivity between the first responders. We do it with the firemen. So we became community chaplains because we work with the firemen, the EMTs, the dispatchers, but we want them to be connected to the community as well. So it makes for a much stronger community.
Absolutely. This is what we've got to do. This is what we have got to build this nation back into the kind of nation where we're working together.
Yeah.
We're all working together. And we can even work with a guy from New York. I mean, really. And a Marine. You know, Chuck Wright, who is now on the Veterans Texas Veterans Commission, is a Marine Corps buddy of mine. He and I started this program together in 2015, and he keeps telling me that the Marine Corps is the men's department of the Navy, and I sort of have to take that insult with a smile. But there is a determination within veterans. Well, there is a continue the mission. There is a focus that we have that we can share with the community to work through some of these big problems. Wouldn't you guys agree?
Yes, sir.
Yep. 100%. Yep.
Okay, so again, go to NAMI, NAMI, North Texas, be a supporter, find out more, ask, get a hold of these guys. They're available to you. I always close with a prayer. So, Lord God of the universe, we are so eternally grateful for men like Todd and Mike and the other first responders who run into the fire. We're so grateful for our military who's there to protect us, who is there to protect us around the world and keep us all safe. Thank you, dear God, for those who run into the fire instead of away from it, and put a hedge of protection around all of them so that they are safe. Dear God, we thank you for this. We thank you for bringing our nation back together, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. Thank you, God. And thank you guys for being on board. And thank you, Todd, for introducing me to NAMI and Overwatch. Next week.